PASHA PAROH, YNet7. Thank you for tuning. Today, we're going to do something a little different. You guys know I'm not really into sports, but I got some special guests today from Just Staying Directional.
Yes,
All
sir.
right.
Yes,
They got
sir.
some great things coming for you. We got DeVar, we got Stacy. I'm gonna give them a second to introduce themselves. And we're gonna cover a topic today on the Rooney Rule. Go ahead and introduce yourself, fellas.
Hi, my name is Stacy. I'm a junior right now at North Carolina A&T State University. Aggie Pride. You feel me? And I am a YouTuber. So my content mainly revolves around gaming, but that's usually my route taken in our JSD production.
All right,
Whoever it is.
I got you. Now, my name is Vari Bethea. I am a fashion designer, and I will be doing apparel and stuff like that for JSD and other things like that. So be tuned for JSD. We on the rise.
Awesome, awesome. So the Rooney Rule. Let me get it on the screen for the people that don't know anything about it. I've heard talk about the situation, but I never knew it was called the Rooney Rule. So here it goes. What we got is basically, per Wikipedia, it states that the Rooney Rule is a National Football League policy that requires league teams to interview ethnic minority candidates for head coaching and senior football operation jobs. Sounds right, fellas?
Sure.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I'm gonna let you guys open up with this with the situation with this. I've got some insight on here. I got some details, some statistics, but I want to hear I want to let you guys open up. So go ahead.
Yeah. So all right, cool. So my thing is the Rooney Rule basically isn't just for sports primarily. They use the Rooney Rule name specifically for the NFL or maybe some other sports. But now my whole thing about the Rooney Rule is everything that's in that thing that's typed up on Google search or whatever like that that you can find is very accurate. But the whole thing is the Rooney Rule. My whole understanding, they put people, they hire minorities like ourselves. Well, not necessarily hire, quote unquote. They interview enough of them too, and then they just push them out the door basically, and not give them necessarily the opportunity that they gratefully so deserve. Um, so that's what the Rooney Rule is. Basically, they don't give the opportunity enough. I'm not sure if you're familiar with hey Stacey, help me out with his last name, but Brian, who is in Miami,
I'm trying to think.
the head coach. I can't. The former head coach is Miami now. He's a Pittsburgh Steelers. I think defensive coordinator, if I'm not mistaken.
I know who you're talking about. I can't think of the name.
But same thing with him. They put it out for him to. The owner of the Miami Dolphins put it out for him that he was all right. Go out there and lose games. And what coach, or what not really what coach, what owner or organization tells their coach to go out there and lose games?
Brian
Now
Flores,
you
right?
go tell your players to go. Yeah, that's what it was exactly. So you go out there and tell your hey guys, let's go out there and lose games. What does that sound like to you? You don't go tell Bill Belichick to go lose games. You don't go tell Ron Rivera to go lose games. And disclaimer: Ron Rivera is a minority himself as well, but he's not African American. I love Ron is cool, but he's not a Matt Rule. Speaking of, that's another thing you got to talk about. But Rooney Rule is a bit yeah, they just try to implement that in jobs where you hire people and then you don't get. They try to make it seem like, oh yeah, we interviewed them, but you never hired them. They just think because we're not qualified because of the color of our skin, that's not the case. Like, don't just disclose me from my case. And it's funny that one of my boys is sitting there not knowing what we're really going to be talking about on my Twitter. The Dolphins, not the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, about to be playing Pittsburgh Steelers this weekend. If you're not familiar who Coach Tomlin is, Mike Tomlin, he's a Pittsburgh Steelers head coach, and Tampa Bay has a new head coach named Todd. African American head coach, first year head coach in NFL, and the media is making like they had said, what does it feel like to be going? What is it like for you to go against Mike Tomlin? Why is that even a question?
Right. Stace, what you
Yes,
what you got
sir.
to add to that introduction there?
Okay, yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with what Vari said because it's basically using minorities just to pick up space. Does that make sense? I don't know if that makes
Nah,
sense.
I'm
makes
with
sense.
you.
So yeah, so I basically am saying like they're using minorities just to wholeheartedly say they gave him a chance. And I see that, well, I have seen that and growing up like playing sports because when you join teams or associations, they basically just say, "Oh, you didn't make the team, but we can say that we gave you a chance." Does that make sense?
Mhm.
And like you see that in your everyday life, but not as far as sports, jobs, internships, just college in general. I mean, from my perspective, it just happens in all aspects of life, not just sports or anything pertaining to it. So that's my idea behind it.
So I got on the slide, I got on the screen right now.
Mhm.
You may or may not be able to see it real because it's not a full picture. I got a screenshot from my phone earlier. I was doing some research. So on this particular slide though, it says what is the Rooney Rule? It gives a little description, but it says in question mark, did it work? And it has a pictorial graph. I guess that represents the number of coaches, right? And it says NFL head coaches 2003, and however many that is. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So that's 22, and then 10, 32, right? Of the 32, it has three as represented as what they're going to label as minority, right?
Mhm.
Right.
Then on the bottom it says NFL head coaches 2020, and it's the same number, 3.
Like the number hasn't moved or not
Nah, it changed.
up.
It changed up. And
Yeah,
that's
at
what
all.
they always say. Coach Tomlin is the face of African, not just African Americans, but minorities leading the pack. And they was like, why hasn't Tomlin said anything? Tomlin is making. That's why we have Brian, part of us working with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm still spending this disclaimer. That's why I said we, but I don't pay for them. But yeah, just be honest, bro. Like if we got rules in place, and this is another thing too, we go back to ownership. Why don't we have enough ownership in a position to be a part of that organization, or a part of that shield in the NFL, to take over, not necessarily take over, but help get us in position of where we can be financially and stable and this and all that stuff like that. It's not just about when you watch sports and stuff, it's not just about the game that you're watching. That's people's livelihood that they're playing for, their kids and stuff. So family and all that. So my whole thing is the Rooney Rule is just people go out there and try to apply for a job and they can't get it based off the color of their skin. That's not right. That's just anywhere you go, and they've been discriminated because of the color of their skin.
Mhm.
Why I got to
So
be discriminated? Because like, go ahead, you good?
okay, so let me drop this on the screen real quick here because it's a big buzzword uh going through the country as a whole, right? Diversity. Okay.
Oh,
Sideways. All right, but look, I'm gonna go ahead and rock with it. So diversity, right, is actually it's actually talking about on here in the etymology form, it states that separate and distinct. So the irony of that, right? That the word diversity is actually meaning separate or distinct. Now, one last slide I want to give here real quick, and I'll turn it back over to you guys because I want to hear what you guys got to say. So here, this is actually from Black's Law Dictionary, and the diversity there is a plea by the prisoner in the bar of execution, alleging that he is not the same who was attained. All right. So
Right.
what I like to see here is the buzzword is diversity, okay? And there's a lot of diversity and inclusions going on, new jobs, positions created over the last few years in big corporations and small alike. So what we know is that a lot of businesses mimic sports, right? When they look at how to work and organize a team, right?
Mm-hmm.
So ultimately, is the NFL representing the current and existing conditions in the country, or is the country currently representing the existing situations in the NFL?
Ooh.
I'm gonna say the country.
You can kind of look at that both ways, though. Oh yeah,
I'm gonna say
hold
the
up.
country more so the fact of personal work experiences. If you can tell like how we're being mistreated in some cases, and how
Mm.
minority women don't get positions higher than, or not just minority women. I'm just say that women in general don't get necessarily higher positions that they deserve based off their degree, knowledge, and stuff like that. To be in the higher role, maybe going to be a CFO or whatever the case may be, moving up in their chains. That's just, I think
Okay.
they getting it from the NFL versus, yeah, the country
Okay.
getting it from the NFL.
Okay, yeah, I ain't mean to cut you off already, but yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with that because, like, if you look and see, even if women women in general get these higher up roles, they won't be getting paid as the same as a colleague that could be in the same exact role but just a male. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So basically, they getting paid for for doing more work, but just because all they're a woman, you feel me? They get paid less. Like literally, it just goes by gender role.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
I mean,
So,
you can look at. Oh, my bad, Pasha. I didn't mean that, Ruffy.
oh, you
But
go ahead. Let me hear what you guys say. Go ahead.
I mean, you can look at it as different types of sports. Like you don't even have to look at it just from the NFL perspective. You can look at it from women's basketball to male basketball. I mean, they had a discussion on ESPN like a few months ago or something. They had a discussion why women NBA players don't get paid as much as male basketball players or the
Right.
NBA.
But to
And
add on that,
you can see why it's a skill gap.
it's not just, we look at WNBA as a prime of what they do for women, for women's sports really.
Mm.
We got Brittany Griner, who still is in Russia. They want to make a trade off. Still hasn't made that, has not had come to a current situation to get her back or do some type of renegotiation or something like that. This ain't no NFL, no NBA trade deal, which y'all trying to make done. Like,
Mm-hmm.
You right?
and get it back. I mean, that's what they're trying to make it seem like. So my whole thing is they don't get the respect they deserve. And the reason I like go back on that, we see our mothers work hard. We know what it's like, and it's just like not just our mother Peter, we women that we just know, Harriet Tubman, all that kind of stuff. Why they don't get the respect they deserve, I don't know. We not just, come on now, like it's just self-explanatory, bro. Like, don't look at somebody's skin color and disrespect them for their hard work and what they did, degrees or not. Like, they got the knowledge for it, they know the work ethic behind it. They should get their same right respect and same right pay, just as LeBron James, Candace Parker, and all them guys. So I'm gonna say this: if you're watching this, go make sure you go watch WNBA and all women's sports. That way we can get them to get their money. That's how it is. You gotta just keep passing stuff on, because at the end of the day, we got to keep building legacies and keep building dynasties, because nobody else wants to do it but us. So we got to change the narrative of how we look at things. It takes a unit to move things instead of one person.
Mm. The people, the village.
Exactly.
So
So
there's an article. I'm glad you guys brought up the women and made that comparison and contrast as well. I pulled some data from the article from www.whorulesamerica.org. ucsc.edu/power, whatever, right? So
Okay.
on that, it says the big picture. I'll read this paragraph for you guys real quick, and I want you to reflect on it if you don't mind. So before looking at the patterns for each of the groups, because this is about CEOs in America. So I'm gonna make the comparison to the CEO game in America. Okay. So before looking at the patterns for each of the groups who make up the new CEOs, it is helpful to keep the larger picture in mind by noting that it is still the case that almost 90% of the Fortune 500 CEOs are quote unquote white males, as can be seen in figure 1. Okay. So the slow increase in new CEOs from a total of 19 to 2000 to 71, 19 in 2000, excuse me, to 71 in 2020 has been accompanied by a corresponding steady decrease in the number of white male CEOs. Still, the white men who make up about 35% of the population, quote unquote, continue to be very much overrepresented, and the gap between them and the new CEOs is still immense. So they state that the white men, quote, may have lost power, but they continue to be the dominant group in the corporate elite. They held 96.4% of Fortune 500 CEO positions in 2000, and they held 85.8% in 2020. So my question is, that's, let's say the median of that 96 to 85 is basically 90, okay? So 10% is something other, right? And if we go back to that graph that we showed earlier, there's 32 teams in the NFL. They had 3. I think they're up to what, 5 this year because they added some more in 2022 from some brief research. Don't quote me on that, but that's that 10 to 15% range. So we have almost an identical percentage of head coaches actively as we do to CEOs in the Fortune 500 America. Tell me what that means to you. Or, excuse me, in the United States.
Honestly, it might be like a pon. I don't know if you ever heard of a Ponzi. Is that the right word to use? A Ponzi scheme?
Yeah.
Well, basically, it's like a scam to keep you trapped in a like mind, just so you can understand that the world is just revolving in the place of a white man. I mean, I'm gonna be completely honest with you. I mean, you don't see too many black men in these higher up positions because these corporations, these companies, they don't believe that we could handle it. I mean, essentially, I mean, you could be this overqualified. I mean, resume down to the T, qualifications down to the T, and you still not get the job, all because of you're a minority in their eyes. And it's just like they feel that you can't handle the responsibility of, number one, having so much responsibility. Number two, you could be possibly looking out for a certain area or location, and they may think you're going to bring this, hey, you're going to bring this location down. So we're not going to give you the position, but we're going to give you a position that's close to it, but not at that level. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And that's how I feel. That's how I feel that we get trapped into these corporations, so to speak, and into these positions because it's like, well, if I can't get that position, I might as well get the next best thing that's under that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, why do you underqualify yourself just because you didn't get a certain point or a certain position, I should say, that you knew that you were overqualified for? I would never do that to myself ever.
Yeah, to add on what you're saying, we don't want to. Why are you under? Basically, getting blackballed is basically what's happening. We've been
That's
getting
the word.
blackballed.
My bad. That's the word.
Yeah, that's how I was waiting for. I'm like, I wanted
Yeah.
to say I just wanted to finish up, but
Yeah.
yeah, we've been basically getting blackballed this whole entire time, and it's like y'all don't want to make any adjustments, or that's why I said we got to build a legacy to create a legacy. And what I mean by that is we have to build within ourselves first, and then build people around us. And I like to add on what I mean, like that whole thing is just like minorities. We have to come together as one to, all right, know the people that's in these positions. Your Robert Krabs, your Jay-Z's, even, and LeBron James, he's a billionaire. Rihanna, she's a billionaire. Beyonce. So we gotta look at these people. Reason I mentioned Robert Kraft, if you want to go to that position where he is, he's the owner of the New England Patriots. You want to go, you want to get in contact with some of these people that you can build a relationship with. That way you know how to maneuver where you get there. And so we need to come together and put ourselves around people to and place ourselves with people of success who can not say necessarily take what they know. That's what I'm looking for. Yeah, basically. So you want to make sure you just pick up what you can from them, and then make it your own flow and things, and just make it that way. We all have something we can have on right off on. Because like now we have other leagues like the SFL with Dwayne DeRock Johnson, and just picked up again to make it a better league. Will it be better than the NFL? I can't say it won't be. I can't say it will be. And the reason I say that is because it's going to take time, just like anything else will. And so, will he bring minorities in? I'm sure he will, because he's a minority himself. There's a female with him also that's owning that. So it's also, you got to think about it. Again, why don't we have these people in our front office, being owners, making these calls, calling the shots? Jay-Z, LeBron, like, not saying LeBron won't do it, but I know he's a Cowboys fan, but also not saying he won't do it. But
so we got a little over 5 minutes left. Let's see if we can consolidate this real quick. So there is a movement in some direction, like LeBron's part owner of a soccer team. I know off the top of my head. I'm sure Jay-Z's in the Nets with the basketball. So I'm gonna compare it to some things I've said on the channel prior to, and that's, you got to ask yourself if you're really looking that focused on inclusion, right? The effort it takes sometimes to fight your way into a place that you're not wanted, or if you feel like you're not wanted, could be utilized, like you're saying in translation, to start your own. So that reinforces the fact that there may need to, if like 90% of the players in NFL are minorities anyway to begin with, right? I mean, something's not adding up there. So closing remarks on that, with that on the table.
That's crazy that you just said that. Like, so you just said literally start your own. And I just did a paper on the National Negro League, so the NL. And I feel like that would be perfect for today. Like, I mean, I know it's modern times and all the rules and regulations wouldn't be the same as the original NNL, but you can still bring up some of the reasons for why that you want these leagues to be acceptable for this time period today, because they basically took all the Negroes who couldn't play in the all-white sports and formed their own league. I mean, that would make sense for me to do it. I mean, granted that I mean, times have changed and not everybody is the same as their ancestors, family members, etc. But I feel like it could be worked on in a way that it will work for the benefit for all African American players of these sports leagues, organizations. I feel like we should branch off, in my opinion. So I was gonna keep it short, just so we won't go over the 5 minutes.
Go ahead.
No, I was low key thinking the same thing. Back and forth, I use my like if somebody like we have to start something ourselves. That's fine to recreate history. That way we know. Build our own like I said, we gotta build our own legacy, something for shape, and get the respect that we equally deserve. That's pretty much it, man. Because at the end of the day, we don't want to feel neglected and don't feel like we're not wanted in a space where we've been busting our butt over the course of years. Like I said, I'm not a fan of Tom Brady. If Tom Brady ever sees this or whatever the case may be, I don't like. It's not that I don't like Tom Brady himself. I just don't like how much stuff he gets off with. And when it's Cam Newton, when he gets hit, they don't call it. So it's like, make it make sense to me. Stop being hypocritical when it comes to the color of my skin. That's it. I'm gonna leave it on that.
Okay. So going back to the original word that was sideways in the picture, I'll fix that later in the future next time. But diversity, separate and distinct. And the sports represents America, or excuse me, United States businesses and stuff. They follow the sports lead on how to work with the teams. I find it really interesting that it's an exact match to the percentage of CEOs running the Fortune 500 as it does in the NFLs and their head coaches. We can't boycott anything that you haven't already built something to replace. Same thing we said on this channel when there was marching, talking about boycott this, boycott that. Until you have a system built and established to replace it, you're doomed to return to what you're wanting to boycott. So when you look at city league footballs, every city got their little league. This county got their little league. So why is it that there is one NFL, like you said, with one NBA? You're working on some things with the big three or whatever. What's that NBA
big
thing?
Three, big three with Ice Cube has.
Yeah, so they're coming out with different things, and I think just like YouTube is taking over cable, we're gonna start to see that become more apparent in the future. So I think you guys should build on some conversations about how we transition from here to there in the future. What do you say?
And I most definitely, like I said, we got something in the works for you guys to tune on to. Check us out on all social media platforms at Just Staying Directional. Leave it in the comments down below as well on here. That way we can get you for all this feedback as well. But now we're gonna have everything that you guys want to see and talk about. But now we're gonna build something for sure. We got something up our sleeve. So
all right, I'll have that in the comments below because it's ready to drop off. PASHA PAROH, Y7.